In this video I'll show you how you can use the Figaf tool to manage your SAP CPI, both DevOps, testing and alerting and monitoring. And it's all a part of the package. There is a free trial you can sign up. There's a link to this page and it is pretty simple. Just enter your name, email address and your company name, and obviously these needs to be unique. You will then receive an email about approving your email or confirming your email, and once you receive that one, you will receive another email with a link to signing up. So you will receive an email like this one, and here we can reset the password, copy, and then we don't need that one anymore. So we will sign in here, we'll create a passcode for it. Reset password. And then we will need to log in with the same user. Hopefully you enter the right password. And then we are able to log into the application. So the first thing we need to do is we can load license and check what exists. Since it's cloud, it's already there. If you had downloaded the on-premise version that you can get from just figaf.com, in here you can sign up here, download the tool, and this will then give you a jar file that you can download, run it from your laptop. And obviously that's better if you have some confidential data that you do not want in our cloud offering. This is a little easier to get started and seeing and sharing it with your colleagues. So if you have downloaded the on-premise version, you also get a license ID. You need to add this and then synchronize this. So the first thing is we need to connect it to a development system, and we do have our PI system, CPI system here. So we will go here, we will create a new system ID. So system ID will be, the type here is CPI. Your user is your S user, and you will enter your username here. I'll just enter this user afterwards, and over here you will need to enter the map host, the runtime node, and the way you can find it is by going into the deployed content. Here you can get the host name here, so you will copy this one in here. If you're using Cloud Foundry, you will need to get a client ID and a client secret to be able to trigger messages for this. So we'll just use the Neo, and then it's just about saving this, and then just pause, enter password. Once you have started this, you can go here, say test configuration, and see if it works out successfully. So now we have created one agent. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a test case for this agent. And the first thing we have to do before we can do that is we need to synchronize. And synchronize will then download all the data from the specific system, all packages, iFlows and all that. So it's a good way that you have changes in your landscape, know what's going on. And this will take a little while, so I'll just pause while it's downloading. So now the download is complete, 400 iFlows in 1.5 minutes. So it's not something that takes a long time. And we can schedule this to run in the background. We can also, when we want to trigger it, schedule it and do it for just one specific iFlow. Good. So now we got a list of all the different iFlows deployed on the system, and we want to find the one. We have one here that we would like to create some test cases for. And so you can search in these, you can see if they started or not. We can say record messages. demo recording, spelled correct. We can specify how many messages we want. If we have specific ordner or partner message information that we want to extract, we can also specify more details down here. We have different strategies if we just want to get the first and the last messages, if we want to download MPL attachments also as a part of our test suite. And we can then start it here. It will request the license that you need, and we also need DevOps for this later, so we'll just do it in one go. So now the license has been successfully added, and we can start the recording. And once we start the recording, the iFlow is switched into trace mode, and it will then be kept there for the 10 minutes that it is in trace mode. And obviously there's also a setting on the agent. You can go in and specify it needs to keep the iFlow into trace mode for a longer duration. Now I need to trigger the same iFlow that it's running, and we can pull these messages. And obviously it depends on the number of steps, iFlow and stuff like that, how many messages there are. It's also possible to go and just say the first and the last in the specific settings. So now we have created the iFlow, we have downloaded one message and 35 outbound messages. We can create the test case just by clicking here. And then this will create a test case that we can then use when we're running. It's still kept here because we still need a few messages. So we'll just delete that. We don't need it anymore. So now we have a test case for it. We can go in, we can check the messages that we have here. If we had collected and set up the Git repository, we could go here and push test cases for all the Git repositories into the iFlow. There's a separate video where I go through about how you can actually set this Git repository up, how it works with the test cases. And let's just, for the sake of this, make a small demo in here. We can edit payload, online test, save it. And so the reason why I wanted to make this small modification was just so we could see it once we ran, and we'll see there were some changes in it. Once you run, you have an option to run on the system where this exists. So if you have added multiple agents into your system, you will be able to see it on all of those different systems. And once you have started the process, it will automatically start downloading the results, and we can see here there's a lot of errors here, and we need to go through all of these errors and see what they are. So there are some that there's a SAP run ID that's different, there's an expire header that's different, we have application ID, and we have a date that is different between the two messages. So with that, we can go in and say, okay, now we have ignored some elements in this. Let's just do a re-evaluation of all these 35 messages and see if there still are some errors in this. So we can see there's still one error here. Let's check it out. Real result. Oh, we want to check here. We want to view the diff, and here we can see there was an online test we have added. Now user wanted this one instead, and that means that was successful. If we want to say, okay, now this is our new message we want to use, we can simply just say, okay, this is the new test case we want to use for it. So now we have actually created the test case. We can run it as we like. So we can just press run, and then we'll run it all the time we have it. We also have a lot of other options on the test configuration. We can go in, we can exclude certain steps in the processing if they are not relevant for us. We can ignore certain XML elements or JSON, whatever, that is not relevant. And one of the cool thing we also have is this mock endpoint. So if you have services like Salesforce or SuccessFactors where you cannot create the same object again and again, you can use the mock endpoint, and then instead of calling the real system, it will then call the Figaf system. So let's just try that. So that will obviously give some small different errors because it works in a different way and has some different settings. So now we're creating this mock endpoint, and what it will do is it will see, okay, we have this version of this object. It has been changed, so we will need to make a new version of it, so we can see it here. And if we look at the monitor, we will then be able to see it's using these endpoints, and then the endpoints is actually pointing towards. So here it's using this URL here, and here we can see it's using the Figaf system as it is. And obviously this also works with Cloud Connector if you have locally deployed iFlows. And then it will wait until it has started processing these messages, and then you can actually go in and test the result of these things. So once the iFlow has been started, marked as started, will start sending messages, and then you'll see the result, and that may contain some different because the HTTP property we're sending may add some extra properties that you just can go in and ignore. So let's see. So now we can see it has run again. It has given us a lot of errors, and if we just look at it, we can see there's a lot of new properties that we just need to go in and set ignore on these, and then we can run it again, and it should work as we normally have done it. I think that's because I've added this to our CloudFront, and I guess CloudFront is adding all these cache statuses that is on top of it. Yeah, Cloudflare. And then we can do the comparison again, and hopefully we'll see a little fewer messages here. Oh. Now we are getting some successful messages. And all of this happens in the background, so that obviously may depend on how many other people are using the system at the same time. Let's see if there's one or two extra steps that we ignored. VIA properties was only in the test message. But yeah, the idea is go through all of these, figure out what exists, are there any differences that we need to go around for this to actually be a successful valid test case. Okay, so let's do the other thing. That would be I'll just deselect this one because that just takes too long time. Now we want to go to switch the other gears and be able to actually create changes in our landscape, being able to transport and deliver SAP integration much easier. So to do that, you obviously, a good idea would be to add multiple agents to it. If you just want to test with your test tenant, that's also fine. The system does support that. So you can go in, you can create a landscape. It's CPI. This is so we can reuse actually the same tenant multiple times. Dev QA I've been reusing the same prefix a number of times, so I just want to keep it clean for that. We can then, so we can add multiple items here. If we're reusing the same item again, it will be defined as virtual, and virtual here it will add pre and post fixes for that specific iFlow, so you know that it works in a specific way. You can set up if it needs approval and who needs to approve this from your user base, and you can have deploy after transport if you want to do that. So now we've created a landscape, and that can obviously be a 3-tier landscape depending on what you want. If you have to find multiple items into it. For proof of concept, probably a good idea just to stick with dev and QA and not move anything into production. So now we have defined this, and we then need to go into our, so we have an iFlow here, so we'll say get customer. We had the one that's called get customer 3 here. No, that's mock. That's way too many of these versions here. No worries. The other thing is obviously to do changes of an iFlow, you would always need to go into the Figaf tool, unless you start using the mock services and the Git repository. That also gives a lot of advantages, making it a lot easier for you to deliver SAP integration. So what we can go in here, we can make a change into one of the payload here. So we can have good value 4, save it as a new version. So we have version 1, 1, 2, 3, and now we can do a synchronization. And we don't want to do the full synchronization because there's just so much other stuff in our landscape, and that just takes a long time. So if I am a developer, I will just go in, take a look at my specific package that I'm developing in, and then it just takes 2 seconds for it to complete instead of a minute. And we can see we now got a new version of this. And the idea is we want to take this version and move it into QA and production in a seamless way. And to do that, we will take this, and we can also do it from outside here. We can assign it to tickets. So we'll select it, assign to tickets. So this is about a ticket in the Figaf tool is a way to collect what you're doing for your Jira ServiceNow incidents. Put them into one go. And then you can have a description of why you have made this change, what this change is about, and all these kind of things. And the idea is that once you go back and look at the objects, you can see a full history of these objects, and you can see we actually made a change to these objects at some specific point in time. We can look up if we have any test cases for it. We do have that, which was quite lucky. And then we can run it on one of the systems in our landscape. And then it will trigger this message, run it, and we can then see the result. And this is the same result as we had in the testing example previously. New results. So we can see if there were any difference. We may have ignored some elements or in it or something like that. So we can see nothing was affected by this change, so we can start the transport. Just check here. So we got 1, 2, 3 here. So the way we're doing transport is that you do it on an object basis. So this could either be an iFlow or a value mapping a package. These kind of objects that can be transported independently. So if we look here, we have a property here for a specific version. We can go in, we can define in QA. The API key is, and we can also define a new password we want to use here, and then it will say, hey, there's actually a password that is wrong here. Are you sure you want to do that? No, we only want valid passwords. So this is a way where you can go in, configure the full landscape in just one view. Then you can do a comparison, and we have a number of different ways. We have a BPN model with viewer, and this is preferred for this. So obviously we do not have anything imported here already, so we can only see the data here. If we had imported it, what we will be able to see is actually the same comparison as we have here. So this will give us an indication about where something has changed, and we can see it is this value that was something before that is now good value, or that was demo POC before, and now we have good value for. So this makes it really simple to see. We also have different views. There's a diff to HTML, which is good if you want to see what kind of changes happens in Groovy scripts and stuff like that in your mappings. Good. So now we are on the ticket. We can send it to approval, and I can approve it. Go. And now I can actually import this onto the specific landscape. So we need to also transport this package as a part of this. To do that, we need to go back to our ticket. We can set it back to development, and that enables us actually to make changes to it. And what we can then say here is we can attach all dependent objects. So now we're getting all the packages that's actually, or all the objects that's a part of this that we want to have. So we can start our transport again. And if we look at the transport here, we can send it to approval again. And now we can see we're getting the package in. And that's just because we have not transported the package before on this target system. So it does not really know what to do with this specific package. When we're using the virtual landscapes, it will add pre and post fixes to the structure, making it easier for you to import it. And the only thing you need to do is, if we look at these two iflows we have out here, we can see here it has added this prefix after the HTTP, whereas the original does not have that information. So it's a much more convenient way of handling the iflows. That means you can actually trigger it on the QA virtual system. So now we're actually done with our transport. We have configured everything. We can resolve it. And now the ticket is done. We can create a report about what we have done, what are the objects that we touched as a part of this. So here we can see all the information about it, what are the attached objects as part of it, which test cases did we run, what were the results, what were the errors of this results, and which kind of transports did we actually perform on the system, when were they imported, and stuff like that. And this can then be put into Jira ServiceNow as a way to document these are all the changes and tests we have run as a part of this scenario. The other thing I wanted to show you was the monitoring capabilities, and this is about making it a little easier for you as a developer to understand what's going on, but also the business to understand what's going on. So the idea here is you create customer specific or process specific filter that makes sense in some way in your organization. You can then specify which artifacts is a part of this. So we can select our get customer 3, also QA. And that way we can actually see everything that's going on these iflows in just one view. And this one will give you both all the header attributes, you have option to search for custom attributes if you want to do that. You have an option here to go in, so it's up here, you will then search for doc and then the document number here, and then it will apply within the same time frame for this. You can see which kind of persisted messages that we have as a part of this. So you can see all of these different payloads here and header attributes, and then up here you have the application ID, making it a little easier for you to understand what's actually going on as a part of this monitoring process. And the idea is you can also give business users access to view one or more of these tiles, so they can view the purchase process or whatever they need as a part of this, instead of having them to guide them through the standard monitor. And the other part we have is this failed or test consumer that allow you actually to set up alerts, and what you now have triggered is that it will then pull in messages that have failed for one specific reason or another. And obviously this may take a little while for it to just read some alerts. So now we got some alerts that have failed. We can go in, we can see what are these alerts that have occurred. The iFlow is not operational anymore. Not really sure. The idea is we can obviously create a ticket and start filling in these data, or we can just create a new rule saying these needs to be ordered in specific step order, so they will be start with the lowest number, run this XPath against the payload, and if it finds it, then it will say, okay, now I got this specific message. You can mute it for a number of minutes. You can write here how to fix it. This is something we need to do anything with, who needs to work with it. We can send to email or webhook, and we can just say here, good. And then next time we will receive this type of alert, it will be put into this alerting capability, so you would actually see what has happened here. We also do have a system monitor. If that is enabled and you have deployed some specific iFlow on your system, that enable you to see those data. But I hope you got a good understanding of some of the ideas that the tool can do for SAP CPI. It has same capability for API management without test, and also for CPI, or for PIPO, where you also have the option to be able to do the same kind of settings. So go to the link in the description, or go to figaf.com, read more, try it out, and see how it can make your life easier. Thank you.